Hey, Restorers, thanks for checking out a fresh episode of the Restoration Today podcast with people from literally every time zone that you could possibly be in almost. And Anthony being super early all the way in Hawaii, and Leighton in Canada, and Kristy's on the East Coast with me. And we're all here. We are here to talk about the brand new cost of doing business survey. This is something that the RIA rolled out and kind of introduced in partnership with KnowHow at convention in April, and it is rolling now. It is released. I think it's time for people to start putting their data in. And this is a really, really important study that the industry is doing that could help in many ways. So that's what we're here to talk about today, why you should do it, the timeline of it, answering all your questions that you might have related to why in the world would I give you guys my numbers of how my business is doing. And yes. So, all right. So I am joined by Kristy Cohen with RIA, Anthony Nelson, who is an RIA volunteer on the board and also Pivot My Business, and Leighton Healey with KnowHow. You've seen all of these people on my podcast before. So the three of you, welcome. Kristy, I am going to start with you, have you kind of first introduce yourself and then share what the survey really is about, like lay the groundwork here.
Absolutely. Thank you, Michelle, for having us. Again, I'm Kristy Cohen. I'm the CEO of the Restoration Industry Association, and we're really excited to be launching this cost of doing business survey in partnership with KnowHow. This has actually been something that we have been working toward for almost a year and a half. And, when you look around at other trade associations and other industries, you will see that those trade associations are offering important data sets for their contractors, their industry, so that they can better understand what their profitability is, what their cost accounting is looking like, and benchmarking that against their peers so that they can really kind of set some goals, understand where they compare to others. And for us specifically as RIA, as part of our advocacy work, the AGA, we really understand that obviously 10 and 10, right, is certainly an issue, an area of concern for many restorers. It's been around in our industry. And so by providing this opportunity for restorers to provide their financial information to us in a confidential and secure way, we can start to really glean true insight, right? Understanding that overhead and profit is going to vary from company to company. Being able to do a survey like this every year is going to then be able to give us important trend information about where is our industry headed? Are we seeing profitability increase for our members, and really help us dig in, not just from a financial benchmarking standpoint, which this data, it doesn't exist anywhere else, right? So this is the first report of its kind specific to restoration, but it's also going to help inform our advocacy work going forward around some of those important independent pricing related issues. So we are so excited to be launching this with KnowHow.
Awesome. Okay, so Leighton, I'm going to toss it to you next to intro yourself. And KnowHow is becoming quite the partner in doing industry research, which is awesome. And your team is really, really good at this. So talk a little bit about kind of the process that KnowHow follows to collect data like this, to keep it safe, to make sure that it's being used in the proper ways and all those things. You understand exactly where that question's going. So Leighton, go
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah. Hey, Michelle, pleasure to be here, and thanks for having us. Thanks for spotlighting what we think is a very important initiative. So my name is Leighton. I'm the CEO at KnowHow. KnowHow is an app that is used by hundreds of restorers to onboard, train, and provide in-field guidance to their workers to standardize the operations of their business. And we've pioneered a lot of the machine learning and the AI in the industry. Our focus is building a very compelling future that we think is necessary. We think that the workforce is changing, and we believe that the ability for you to be able to drive sustainability in your workforce requires you to have a financially viable business. And part of that starts with industries like property restoration, where sometimes either through the chaos of the nature of the business or just for the fact that you're naturally not wanting to spend too much time with your competitors, you can live in a silo, and you can have this sense that your business is struggling or your business is doing well without really having any sense of how the rest of the industry is doing. And so the fact of the matter is that in industries that have largely commoditized services, there should be greater collaboration around in anonymized data sets. Can we get a sense of how we're doing? Because we have a largely commoditized service, meaning we do a lot of the same stuff, there is times where we should lock arms in a sense and advocate for shared priorities. But the challenge is that you need something sturdy that you can build your case upon, especially when what you're advocating is asking other well-resourced industry participants to change or to make accommodations. And the natural question when you're asking someone to change is, well, based on what, right? Or how many are we talking about here, right? And so that strength in numbers response is currently not available to the industry for financial related requests or comments or advocacy work. So we at KnowHow, we believe that that the industry is at an important crossroads, and part of that is for this business to still be here in 10 years, the economics need to shift. And especially for young people that have seen perhaps their parents run these business in a manner that they would consider unsustainable, for them to even consider a future in this industry, they need to know that the economics make sense. And so we're interested in creating businesses that are more systematic, they're less dependent on critical people and more driven by process. But we're also interested in businesses that I would say from an economical standpoint are more attractive from a profitability standpoint, from a sustainability, from a viability standpoint. And we know from other studies that we do with, for example, with your team, Michelle, that as companies find savings and reinvest in staff wages, they're overcoming the biggest hurdle in this industry, which is retention. And so we believe that this is a very important report. And to get people to participate, we take security and anonymity, privacy, very seriously. And so all of the data that's submitted is anonymized. Anyone who looks at the data, signs a very meaty non-disclosure agreement. This isn't like a Survey Monkeys tool. We use heavy Qualtrics software that secures data from any type of penetration, because the quality of the data does require a person to be open and transparent. So we, as an engineering-driven software company, we take that very seriously. And so I like to think that a person that's participating can feel confident, knowing that none of their competitors, no party in the industry is going to look at their data. This is just their ability to be able to participate in something that I believe is going to be a major lever bar for them to be able to drive meaningful change in their industry. So I hope that's helpful. But and when you participate in the survey, you'll see there's a lot of disclaimers that will provide assurances that that we are taking privacy very seriously.
Perfect. Okay. So, all right, before we dive into kind of timeline and who does this and all those kind of questions that I'm sure people have, Anthony, I want you to talk a little bit about as well the importance of this. You're somebody that's been involved in pricing and getting people paid and invoices and Xactimate and all of these things. And I know that you have a lot of experience in the margins that contractors are seeing and custom price, all of these things related to this. So from your vantage point, first introduce yourself, but from your vantage point as well, what is the importance of this and the value that contractors could see on the flip side when all this is done and the data is aggregated?
Next time we do intros on a call with Leighton, I want to go first. Okay. He was so articulate. I feel like I'm just gonna trip and fall now. So Anthony Nelson, group facilitator at Pivot My Business. Interestingly enough, we have 44 member companies within Pivot that we have a lot of data on. And so, the relevance of what this survey could bring to the industry is not lost on me, right? Like I could see the throughput of how our members are using their own data and the data of the peers that participated, their peers group, and leveraging that. And that's just a group of 8. And I can't help but wonder what the power of a much larger set of data is going to provide to the industry and to the individual restorers at large. Like I'm going to double click on the construct of 10 and 10 from a contractor's perspective for a second and throw on my customized pricing hat, because I think it's an interesting conversation. So if anybody, read my article last year that we published in CNR magazine about how to do your own customized labor rates, and you got down into the fine print, you'll notice like all of that was oriented around being ignorant of 10 and 10, with the exception of whether or not you choose to apply it or not, right? Calculate what your retail labor rates should be, because we know it's not 10 and 10, right? We know that on an average, like I have not talked to a single restorer, and I talk to people who are, $1 million in annual revenue, under $1 million in annual revenue, and those that are far north of 50 million in annual revenue. And nobody's overhead is 10%. Everybody's overhead is a number that is larger than that. Now, what that number is depends on that organization's scale, their revenue mix, right? And a few other factors. So when I look at this, I go, okay, number one, we'll be armed with a tool that we can have an intelligent conversation with the rest of the industry at large around 10 and 10, number one. Number two, we think we know what good looks like, but we really don't. And so when I look at it through the lens of maybe a business owner who's like questioning whether or not they should participate, questioning what the value is, and maybe even concerned or have a higher sense of vigilance around, like, what if insurance carriers actually know how much money we make as restorers? I think you'll be pleasantly or unpleasantly surprised, depending on which hat you wear, to understand exactly what the cost structures are out there in the industry.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
On that, Anthony, my if I can make a quick follow-up, is I think we would all agree that we interact with a lot of people in this industry where the dignity, the fulfillment of the work, helping people put their lives back together, is a compensation in itself. It's not a revenue line on the P&L, right? But there's a compensating quality to that. And I believe that when we dig into this, I think that I would predict that one of the eyebrow raising results will be that that this industry is actually I don't think making the bottom line dollars that I think is sustainable. And I hope that one of the results will be many of the stakeholders who are involved at the mouth of the river when it comes from where the dollars originate will recognize that we have to think more symbiotically. And we have to start thinking about the viability of the next generation of restorers who may not, in a sense, consider the fulfillment of the work full compensation when they look at the end of the year where maybe the business was not profitable. And that's not some tax maneuver, that's real dollars and cents. And I think that I talked to enough restorers that I would say they do the work because it's fulfilling. They know that they're impacting people's lives. But especially when you start layering in warranties and go backs and whatnot and all the paper cuts, it adds up. At the end of the day, I would say that the long-term viability of this industry could be, in some cases could be a bit of a house of cards. And I think it's important for, those organizations, especially as they continue to make promises to policyholders, that you have to balance incentives for a system to be sustainable. And I'm hoping that we can have good conversations around balancing incentives.
Leighton, I just want to piggyback what you said and just, kind of reiterate from RA's position. One of the things, and I want to give a lot of credit to our leadership on our independent pricing task force, Ben Justison, Anthony Nelson, all of the folks that have been supporting AGA. we've really had, a focus, and this has been part of RA's DNA in terms of having financial accounting resources for restorers, right? How can we elevate to make sure that restorers understand their cost accounting and really understand their real numbers? And I think by going through this exercise and then providing these data points in the financial benchmarking, it's also going to elevate, right, that awareness of, okay, to Leighton's point, maybe I'm not where I think I am, or it's going to raise that elevation of making this, a priority that I am, comparing myself and looking at my financial health and cost accounting and understanding where I'm really landing with my true numbers based on my current business model and structure. So I'm hoping that this continues to support that cost accounting awareness that's beneficial for all restorers.
So who should be putting in this information? And I know that this isn't the type of survey where you're just going through and clicking like A, B, C, D. This is not that. This isn't one of those like you can sit back with the TV on at the end of the day and kind of like half brain it. This is going to require some work in a good way. So I'm not sure who wants to tackle this question, but who should be, maybe Kristy or Leighton, but who should be taking this? And how long do you think it's going to take? What data should be prepared ahead of time? Those kinds of things.
Yeah, I can speak to that, Kristy, if you like.
Sure.
So now, not every business has this role. I recognize that. A lot of businesses where there may be maybe more of a smaller operation, some of these roles might be consolidated into, one of the owners. But what you're looking for is someone who has a clear line of sight on the financials of the business. And for smaller companies, that might just be someone who supports you with your QuickBooks instance. For larger organizations, that might be someone who would be more of a department leader who knows how everything rolls up to the top of their financial function. And so at the end of the day, you want somebody who in one consolidated participant has the information at hand to be able to understand the financial story of how your business ended in 2023. Full stop, right? So if I was to advise, three components of the who, it should be someone who has a clear line of sight on the whole financial picture of the business with data on hand. They have access optimally to your 2023 year-end financials, even if it was your 2023 financial statements from, December 31st. Assuming that your year end is a calendar year ending December 31st or whatever it would look like, as long as you can have a complete picture. And then I would invest in getting them a very snazzy cup of coffee, right? Because this is going to take them an hour if they have that information on hand. So this is a give to get. This is a give to get, right? We all remember our first Hotmail account. We all remember our first Uber $20. This is a give to get. So participate, and then, within a matter of a couple months, then receive a really elegant report at no cost to you that is, in a sense, reflective of the broader data analysis. So that's who needs to participate. And comfy chair, good playlist, nice coffee, full picture of the financials of the company.
Lock the door.
Lock the door, not available, and totally.
Are you able to sign out and come back in? Do you need to be able to do it all in one sitting?
That's a good question. So you are able to do it in segments. Okay. It's something where, you do have to register, right? And there's all these disclaimers around privacy and whatnot. Yep. But yeah, I can tell you right now, we have a volume of individuals who have completed the survey, and we have a volume of surveys in progress. And so certainly, like all things, if you're able to just contain your entries into one, say, 60-minute segment, I think that's going to be probably the best bang for your buck. But if you need to kind of chop it up on the corner of your desk, that's fine. That's fine too.
So Anthony, putting your restorer hat back on, and when you're, running a restoration company and you're thinking, okay, I need to set an hour aside, I need to have all this data ready, I'm providing all of this. We've never done this before. I'm a little nervous. What would you say, if you were sitting in that seat, what would it take to convince you that, no, this is important and we need to put the data in and be part of this?
We were members of DKI back in the day, and they did a benchmarking exercise for a few years in a row. And I remember the first time it came out where, lengthy, almost surgical type of input where I've looked at it and I'm like, I was working, my controller at the time was Patty. I'm like, I don't know, Patty, figure it out. Like, I don't know. Don't ask me. I don't know. Just figure it out. And we participated, but we participated to a minimum level of participation. We didn't really dig in and give it justice. And then when the aggregated data showed up in an elegant report in my hands, I started combing through it. I started looking at all the cost centers in our business and how they paralleled on a national level or a regional level, or and then where I dug in was on the overhead cost structure size. And it was a system of checks and balances to really answer the question of, am I right sized, right? A lot of the times as restorers, we tend to engineer people-based solutions to problems, right? AR over 90 is too high, hire somebody to go hunt it down, right? We don't often think about whether or not those decisions are good in the long term. We're trying to address a short term or an acute problem. And as a result, our overhead can get a little fat and a little lofty at times. We're making decisions that we feel are right for the business in the short term, but then we have people twiddling their thumbs in our office, right? The impact that survey, that benchmarking data had on our organization was truly profound, to the point that the next year when it came out, it wasn't like, Patty, I don't know, figure it out. It was, all right, next Tuesday, 10 o'clock, you and me, we're sitting down, we're going to get fat cups of coffee and we're going to hammer through this thing and make sure that we are doing this survey justice. Because if it's a garbage in, garbage out scenario, right? Like, we want to make sure that we are participating because we have taken great benefit from this.
Perfect.
And if I could add to that, Michelle, just a really crisp tack on is, the RIA has tremendous momentum. I think everyone who has any interaction with the organization would say it is a bullet train right now.
Yep.
And so there is more conversations. There's going to be more efforts. There's going to be more initiatives. And as Kristy referenced, our commitment is that this would be an annual cadence. And so the ability for this to be an ongoing bucket, so to speak, that we know that we can, in a sense, toss aligned questions and aligned queries into, that will support initiatives that matter, is a very powerful activity. One of the things that that everyone here is well aware of is we work very closely with Michelle, with your team, on a different report that serves a different purpose. And the amount of times where, now that we're a number of years into doing that report, where I interact with someone and they say, something I've always wanted to understand about the themes or large trends, and is there any way, because they know that now that there is a function in their in the industry that's predictable and trustworthy, where that can serve a purpose. And I believe the same thing here. Just to speak to what Anthony, you're saying, is that it is, I would say, compelling to have an inaugural report, but it's transformational to have an annual report.
Yeah.
And I think that is, I just want to double click on what Anthony said there. I think that's very important.
Yeah, I 100% agree. We've seen the same thing with state of the industry and how it really, it totally doubles down as you have the year-over-year data, for sure. Okay, Kristy, talk about timeline here. It's open now. How long is the survey open? How can people learn more? Where do they go?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have been working with Leighton's team. It's been phenomenal. We actually have coming up on May 10th at 1 p.m. Eastern, we're going to have a Q&A webinar. So anything that you all need to know about the survey, about questions that you may have regarding the anonymity, all of those kind of things will be available to folks so they can participate in that. And then we have information, we've set up a URL specific to the cost of restoration. So I believe, Leighton, it's costofrestoration.com. Again, that's costofrestoration.com, where you can go. That's where you can register for the survey. You'll see some FAQ information about all of the security of your data. And there's also contact information. So if you have questions, we have, folks on Leighton's team that are available to assist with those questions. But that May 10th webinar will be really important for folks to sign up for as well, so that they can answer any Q&A. I know our goal, right, and this is again going to depend on the participation of restorers, right? I believe Leighton and I are very optimistic that we would like to have a final report ready to release and launch in Q3 of this year, right, Leighton? In terms of being able to release that to the industry. So that's really our goal, and that's what we're shooting for. But anything else that you'd like to add, Leighton, on that?
Only to say that, like if I like, hey, I'm a business owner. Like time is precious, and I think that the question is like, well, what's in it for me? Like, what is the what's in it for me factor? So let me say this: with or without you, the report's getting produced, right? So the report is going to land on your desk, and it's going to be an impressive report. And you're going to pick that up and you're going to look at your teams, or you're going to look at, a carrier, you're going to look at someone who's quoting pricing to you, and you're going to be able to reference this. And they're going to ask you this question. Your staff are going to ask you this question. Your suppliers are going to ask you this question. Your insurance carriers are going to ask you this question. Okay, and this is representative of your data too? No, I didn't participate, right? Like, okay, well, so you're just like a bandwagon, you're just on this. Like, why are you waving this at me? You didn't participate. So what I'm saying is that you want to be able to say, you see this report, this is a really powerful tool. This is me, this isn't just me talking. Look who's behind me, and just the broad shoulders of huge numbers of collaborating competitors, right? But in here you have a shared cause, and you want to be able to say, when you present that information, you want to be able to say, yeah, and my numbers are in here too. Or you want to look at your team and say, yeah, our numbers are in here too, right? So we can take this to the bank. And so I think that that's important, is because you might say, well, we'll catch this on the next year, right? As they work out the kinks or whatnot. Well, that's fine, but understand that you're not going to have a lot of teeth. You're not going to have a lot of, you're going to have less ground to stand on. And so it's important you're part of the inaugural year, because we're all part of making decisions. And if this thing doesn't gain the traction, then, Kristy, her team are going to say, hey, like, does the industry really want this? And so we do want it. The industry does need it. And when you talk to your team, and when you talk to your vendors, you want to be able to say confidently that I stand on these numbers because my numbers are in these numbers. And I think that's important.
Yes.
It's kind of like the fish show at the Sphere. Like, if you weren't there, there's only one first fish show at the Sphere. And if you weren't there, you weren't there. That's it. You missed it. There might be a second, but it's not going to be the first.
Yeah.
And so you're sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whether you like fish or not. Like, I felt FOMO. Like, I've never been to a fish show in my entire life. I don't know.
The Sphere, I don't know. Okay. Anything else that anybody wants to add?
No, I would just say I appreciate the partnership very much with KnowHow. As I mentioned earlier, the REA, it's really important to us. And again, the work of our independent pricing task force group, and Ben and Anthony and others with AGA, that we are delivering value to the industry. And I think being able to establish this benchmarking report that's going to be free, right? Usually, folks can publish reports and data like this that can cost thousands of dollars to purchase, right? So we're thankful for the partnership that we have in KnowHow to be able to bring this to the industry at no cost. We just ask for your participation so that we can know that this data has meaning, and it's meaningful in the impact and how we will be able to draw and glean insight from it to make good decisions about how we need to evolve as an industry, where we need to take our advocacy work, and where maybe some of the pain points and struggles are for our contractors. So just want to thank KnowHow for being such a great partner in this. Thank you, Michelle, for helping us spread the word. This is something that is going to be a really grassroots effort to get this launched, but it's going to have, a huge impact on the industry going forward. So we appreciate that.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you all for joining me. I can't wait to see this when it all comes out. So I hope that people participate. Costofrestoration.com, the webinar next week if you have questions, or it's going to be this week, I guess, by the time this comes out, May 10th at 1 p.m. Eastern. Check out the RIA website, restorationindustry.org. You can find out information there. I'm sure you can find out information on the KnowHow website. You can find information on the CNR website. You can't miss it. It's going to be around. So thank you to each of you. Good luck on the report. I can't wait to see the outcome.
Thanks, Michelle. Thank
Thank you,
you.
Michelle.
Thanks.
For more Restoration Today and the latest news, visit our website, cnrmagazine.com, and find the latest episodes of the Restoration Today podcast on your favorite podcasting platform.